Welcome to Tea Time and Talent Acquisition, the podcast aimed at fostering knowledge and sharing stories within the vibrant talent acquisition community. I'm your host, Eden, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joined by absolutely no one. And no, that's not a mistake, but rather a special episode with a way to take some time to share a topic that's very close to my heart when we talk about recruitment. It's a topic that I want to float to the forefront of everyone's minds as it has the ability to impact a wide array of topics, all the way from candidate experience and talent pool development through to data analytics. Before we get into all that, I've realized that after 4 seasons, I haven't really truly introduced myself. And those who follow me on LinkedIn will know what I do. But if you're just listening to the podcast, here's a little bit about myself. So I'm the host of this podcast. I'm the co-founder of Peritus Partners, and I've been a recruiter for over a decade. I always find that my mission in recruitment has always been to help organizations excel in all aspects of the recruitment cycle, to enhance their abilities to find those elusive talents, not just about putting people on seats. I believe that companies genuinely shouldn't rely solely on external recruiters like myself, and instead they should build recruitment strategies that involve an array of solutions, one being external recruitment, being RPO, an embedded, or a partner like myself. It's about finding individuals that can help excel your company when you require it. So when you're ready, grab your favorite tea or coffee if you prefer, and join me in today's episode. I'm not going to do the brain teaser or the teaser that we normally do with AI. I think everyone has covered this already. So instead, I just want to dive straight into this topic, which is really, like I said, a multi-part. So let me set the scene for you. Everyone wants top talent, right? They want that 10x engineer that's going to help take their product to that next level. They want that marketing manager that's going to bring further exposure to the team's offerings, help increase the funnel at the top of potential buyers. But the reality is, you're not right for every candidate. And I think this can be quite a hard truth to accept, especially when speaking to business owners quite early on, seed companies or Series A companies, when they're so passionate about their product or their offering, and they just can't see why people aren't as passionate, right? But the sooner you can understand, okay, we're not right for everyone today, the quicker you can actually tackle this, work out how can you improve. And that's really kind of what I want to focus on today. I see it's often, right? There's this fantastic profile that comes through the door. I've you've headhunted them, they might have applied to you organically. There's a buzz around the team. You can just see from that profile, the hiring manager's excited, talent acquisition excited, and you go through the funnel, right? And through no fault, it just doesn't materialize. The candidate lacks interest at the end of the process, so we can't close them at the end of the process for whatever reason at that stage. But it doesn't always need to be like that, right? So the first thing I want to kind of really touch upon is, are we selling, right? Is our recruitment team, is our hiring process primed to sell? So I'm going to ask questions throughout this, and obviously listen and answer in your own way, and message me on LinkedIn if you prefer to. But the first question I just want to kind of put to you is your hiring process today a balanced process? So what I mean by that, do you have a 50-50 process where 50% of the time is absorbing the information from the candidate, learning from them, learning what they can do, what they want to do, where they want to see their career going. And 50% of it is taking the information that we need to determine, is this candidate right for us? Right? So that's kind of the first holy grail topic of this, right? So usually your hiring process is going to follow quite a simple process. You get a CV, you screen it. Right? You go through a formal interview process, which is handled by different parties, depending on what you're hiring, typically 3 stages, right? So screening call, in-depth chat, be it a technical challenge if you're doing something like that, and then maybe a bar raiser, founder, alternative opinion chat, as we would call it, right? So we go through these stages. Each person or each group kind of focus on different points of the process, depending on your interview, from core values, behavioral, skill-based, whatever, right? That's the general hiring process. But I would really focus on that first interaction, because the idea for me in the screening process, and it doesn't matter who's conducting that screening call, a recruiter, a hiring manager, your CEO, it does not matter. That first interaction is where you learn the sales component to close the candidate at the end of the process. And yes, recruitment is sales, right? As much as we don't want it to be sales sometimes, as much as we don't want to be branded in that category, it is. We are selling a company. We are selling opportunities, is sales. And in any sales environment, you can only sell when you know what you are trying to solve, right? And this is where people, I think, go wrong quite often. We've lost the sales component, and not just in external recruitment or internal recruitment. I see it in teams of all over. They're really good at process management, sometimes too good at process management. And they're really good at getting the key questions that they need to determine yes or no. They ignore the part of the candidate and they focus on what they feel the features are worth knowing for their company. For example, great remote working or workcation or career planning. Great. But what happens if the candidate wants to come to an office? What happens if they're really content being the level they're at, even for the next 3 to 5 years? These are the parts that we're missing. So when we come to the end of the process and we put forward an offer that we think is stellar, it's maybe just a few degrees off. So we need to peel it back. And it's only possible properly in that very first interaction, that 50-50 interview. We learn about them, we see what they can do for us, and then we make a judgment call from that. So we go through a process, it's called SPIN, situation, problem, implication, and need. It's not a new tactic by any means, right? SPIN's been around for years. So situation is you find out where, what's happening today. Why are we having this discussion? What's the problem we're trying to solve inside their current organization that we feel our organization can solve? And it could be something such as career development, right? So let's take that as the example. What's the implication to that candidate for not having the career plan that they're looking for, right? So, for example, let's say they're a senior today and they want to step up into an engineering management position. There is no path inside their current organization. That's where they've decided to look outside. Brilliant. We've got a career plan, right? Great. Fantastic. We've got a direct path for something like that. Before you start going through the process of, great, we know what it is. Let's take a step back again and understand why does the current company that that person's in not have that career plan? And when you start asking whys, you start really breaking down what the true problem is. Now, I might be butchering this for a second. I believe it was Toyota, and I believe it's the 7 whys. Now, someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 7 whys. But the idea is that 7 whys get you to the root problem. Now, of course, if you just sit there in an interview and go, why, it gets a bit awkward after a while. So the problem that you're trying to kind of get to is you want to start peeling back. Don't take surface level information. So career planning. So why is that important for you? Well, I want to become an engineering manager. Okay, brilliant. We can facilitate something like that. But why an engineering manager? Well, I like managing people. Okay, fantastic. Have you ever done that before? No, not yet. Okay, why do you think you'll like managing people? And you go down this route process, right? And eventually you might realize that what they think they want, i.e., to be an engineering manager, isn't really what they want. And it's not until that they've really started to go through it themselves. And it could be something such as they feel that going down the path of a manager at their stage in life, i.e., an older individual, is the way to become more stable in a company. And yes, that is an absolute example that I had literally last week before recording this. So the reason kind of brought this one to light is that if you take brilliant engineering manager, you've got a sale, right? Don't get me wrong. But if you take stability and if you then start coaching them, there's so much more you can bring. You can still, of course, bring in the engineering management route, but then you have opportunities inside your company. Well, brilliant. If stability is really the problem that we're trying to solve, we've just secured Series A. We have this percentage in turnover, which is obviously low for where the market is. And you start bringing in these opportunities, and that's when you start closing them well before we even make an offer. So when we get to the offer stage, it should be as simple as these are the problems we're solving for you. Here's the offer, without making it as obvious as spin. So once you go through this, you're able to tailor your recruitment process to that individual. You spend time getting to know them. It builds up a better candidate experience. But like I said, it's not just about that. It's about making sure that you're actually right for the person. And it's about having the guts to also say, we're not right for you. Right? Our job as recruiters, talent acquisition, is to screen as many people out as possible in a, you know, positive way, right? Not just reject them because we have too many applicants, we can't get through them, mass reject. Absolutely not. But our job is to find, why is this person not right for the job? Because everyone can write CVs these days, right? It's not difficult to go onto ChatGPT, find a template on Canva, whatever you want to do. It's not a difficult process of writing a resume. So our job is to sit there and say, okay, great, 50-50 rule. I want to get to know them where they want to go. Can we offer you that? If not, screen them out and tell them. People are so appreciative when you get to the end of that call. And we do it at Peritus and we say to them, look, this isn't right for you because of what you want, we cannot offer you, or it doesn't match exactly. And then you kind of create this environment where instead of comes into talent pool development as well, where people are appreciative, it's a good experience, they start sharing your brand better. But when you come back to them in the future, you're almost guaranteed a response because they respected that you did not waste their time. And I think we've kind of fallen into this category of taking the market a little bit for granted because we have so many candidates looking and we take it for granted. We go through the process. Sometimes it's not great. Right? I've heard many, many stories. And then we wonder why in the future, when we have this perfect opportunity for that individual, that they just don't respond to us. So it's about coming back to that very initial phase. Are we even selling or are we just going through the process? And now, of course, as we go through process, we need to gather data, right? We don't just accept yes or no. We understand why. Okay, so why did that person pull themselves in the process? Why did they reject the offer? Why did they not want to move forward? Well, yes, they did move forward. Okay, brilliant. Why? Right? So then the next question I want to ask for you is, do you actually utilize the data to adjust your process, or are we just storing and harboring data for a rainy day, right? Weird phrase. I get that. Of course, the first answer should really be we're using it to adjust our process, but you do not believe how many times I've seen teams, both big and small, collect data but never action the data. It just blows my mind, right? So when we do recruitment with teams, we do beginning of a process, we do a bi-weekly check-in where we share all the data. How many people we've approached, how many people have interviewed with us, how many CVs we've sent, etc., etc. There's a few different touch points we have depending on the business. And that's just real scratching the surface data. It's the data that we can collect, but you can collect way more within your process. And the idea is ultimately that we want to share everything back to you to suggest this is where you're going wrong, this is where we can improve, using data points to really set up a process that is tailored to that position in that market at that time. Hiring a front-end developer in 2024 is not the same as hiring a front-end developer in 2022. So you need to pivot, you need to create a process that best aligns. And then you need to create this kind of visual process inside everyone's minds to say, we've got a great hire, let's go for it. Right? Instead of then spending 3 months finding somebody and 2 months in a hiring process, we all are aware what a process looks like. So what data can we actually be collecting? So things such as time to hire, time to review, time to offer. Anything with time in front is always fantastic. It keeps your team motivated to keep the process cycle moving and not stall. Anything, for example, with how many people have been approached, I like that one particularly because it shows the activity that's going in. Now, I'm not saying that, top of the funnel numbers, it becomes a bit spammy, but we should, again, coming back to recruitment, it's a sales job, right? We should be looking at, okay, how many people in the funnel from active sourcing? How many people in the funnel from marketing and advertisement? And then you can really see, okay, let's say this chief product officer position comes in and we get no advertisement. Then we know that we should be headhunting for that role. But then on the flip side, you might get a lot of positions for a lot of people coming in for a senior product, and you might not need to headhunt. So it's about spending time on positions where you might need to do a little bit of a different approach, right? And we need to collect this data ultimately to then start pivoting. So you don't collect and make adjustments straight away. Like you don't need to make any real change immediately. It's about setting yourself a time as a team to say, okay, we're going to review at this point. If we haven't made the hire, we're going to review at this point. Once you sit down with the team and you review, you work out, okay, do we need to make a change? What is that change? What's the hope of making that change? And these sorts of questions should be kind of overarching where everyone should be able to have an input. You know, the recruiters who are doing the job, doing the active sourcing, should be the ones coming to you with the data. And then you basically go and flag anything that comes up in any hiring processes, any candidates that have pulled themselves. Go and find out why. You know, was it a conversation that they had with one of the interviewers that they didn't like, or they didn't like things from a phrase? And you know, it's about taking the quantitative and the qualitative data, and then creating a process that's truly right. And the best recruitment companies, so the best hiring team, talent acquisition teams I know, do this actively. Right? They sit there every single job is well oiled. They know exactly when they're going to pivot if they need to pivot. They know exactly what data they want to collect. Now, the reason I know they know this is because they ask me for these data points. As part of our process working with them, they say, look, we want you to collect this and bring it back to the conversations that we have with you. We need to know this. And that is phenomenal. We need more teams doing this. It creates a better candidate experience. It creates a better opportunity for you as a company to really make a mark on the industry. And again, it allows you to be ahead of the competition. That new job comes in, you've got historical data of how it played out last time. You know, you've got a good groundwork. You know the baseline of where we need to move forward from. And the good job is that most ATS systems now collect all this data for you. So it's about making sure that you probe external hiring partners for their data, that you don't accept anything but transparency on this one. You understand as a collective team where your data should be coming from. And like I said, you pivot based on it. And then you become proactive instead of reactive. So then my next question really is, where are you in that spectrum, right? Are you a reactive hiring team or you're a proactive hiring team? We're talking about this data collection. We're talking about this 50-50 hiring and the interview process. But if you're a reactive hiring team, you cannot do this. Not properly, at least anyways, because you're constantly putting out fires. You're constantly looking for solving problems that arose 3 months ago. And that's again coming to the issue of planning, right? When we come into a reactive environment, everything was to have to be done yesterday. And again, from a recruitment perspective, for the last decade, I've always got a question: when did you want this person hired? And the hiring managers always laugh at me and say yesterday. So I can't stress it enough. That's probably why we're in a position where we're in right now, right across the industry, or part of it at least, anyways. One company who are extremely proactive right now. They've got an architect position for January 2025. And by the way, I'm recording this in July 2024. That is extremely proactive because they understand that the market is difficult. They understand their skill set is difficult. The level we're hiring for is difficult. They know that. They want to have a 3 to 4 month hiring cycle with a handover of the candidate. So it gives us 3 to 4 months of finding that person. That is the most proactive approach we can have because we know exactly the dates of when things need to happen. So we can take a little bit more care. And I do mean care. Because as much as recruitment companies, talent teams will say, yeah, of course we care. I'm sorry, if you've got 20 positions that had to be filled yesterday, you cannot care about every single process. I'm sorry, I'll put my hand up and say, you can't, right? You need to care about getting through the funnels because you've got all these opportunities piling on you. You've got your hiring managers asking for stuff. You've got your manager asking for stuff. You've got candidates asking for stuff. It is so challenging when that happens, and that's a reactive environment. So you want to kind of peel back as much as you can as a team and become proactive. But how do you do that? There's a number of things that you can do that you can borrow directly from what we do. So number one, I would sit down and I'd map the market of the skills that I hire on a regular basis. Now you might see some companies, bear with me. So you might see some companies. I'll call Auto One out on this one. They do it really well. They break down their recruitment teams into different categories: sales, marketing, tech, along those lines, right? And then they embed those recruiters into those markets really easily. Now, they're a larger company, it makes life a little bit easier. If you're a smaller company, it is more challenging, but you can still do it. So what I mean, you need to map your market. You take a look at your company. Who do we hire on a regular basis? What's our tech stack? What sales experience do we need? Right? Where do we hire people from? And what we do is we basically map that market out. We know where our skills are. We know what companies hire the skills we need. And we start to connect and engage with individuals that we want in our company, even when we're not hiring. It's talent pool development. Moya is another company that does this brilliantly, right? You just sit and understand, if we could hire today, who would we hire and why? Let's go find them. Let's go connect with them, engage with them. And we nurture these people. We keep them informed about the market. We send them updates where possible. We use LinkedIn groups to connect with these individuals. We keep notes where possible, but I do appreciate with GDPR, it's a little bit more challenging. But we need to understand early on, are we right for these people? And coming back to the 50-50 side of things, even if we're not hiring today, still have conversations with them. Understand, what do you want? Because we might think they want A, but in reality they want B. And we're hiring for A today, but we're hiring for B in 6 months' time. And so in 6 months' time, actually 4 months' time, we start the conversation of hiring at B. Right? And that's the process behind it. It doesn't matter if they're right for us today. It doesn't matter if we're even right for them in the future. It's about understanding, are we right as a company for them at some point? If so, fantastic. Let's nurture them. Let's bring them into the fold of the company. We want to hire them for some reason, clearly, be it now or in the future, and we know we're right for them, then let's nurture that talent pool. On the flip side, we know we're categorically not right for them. For example, they want a fully remote role. We are not that. Doesn't matter how much we want to work with them. If they are so set on that environment and we cannot do it, it's never going to work. So then you change how you nurture them from trying to hire them to keeping them warm for leads and opportunities like that. This whole process of, being a proactive talent acquisition team, it helps reduce your time to hire with talent pool development. You reduce reliance on external recruitment support. And, you go through the processes of getting better referrals, better candidate experience, because ultimately what ends up happening is that people start to see you as not necessarily an employer-employee, but just a brand. And when your company becomes a brand, people want to do right by the brands that they like. So it's a kind of a different mentality, because I think when everyone talks about talent pool development, it's like get loads of names into a list, message everybody, and then let's see what comes out. But in reality is really pinpoint what type of people, what industries, what schools, what skills, keep them informed, but, just nurture them in such an organic way that it doesn't feel like you're trying to hire them. And eventually people will be hired that way. I mean, the best examples I can kind of think of are always in sports on this. People move sports teams. I mean, my example, I follow the F1 quite actively. And Lewis Hamilton went from McLaren to Mercedes, right? Just that example there. That happened because of Niki Lauda, and he nurtured him over a period of time. It wasn't just a one-off conversation that happens, it was a period of time. Same thing when Toto Wolff went to Mercedes. There's a lot of Mercedes clearly in my family. But the point I'm saying is that it's not just a one-size-fits-all. It's working out what that person wants, presenting it to them at the right time, and being ready to hire them and make opportunities for people. So how often do you recommend a rejected applicant to another company? And that's my final question for anybody that's listening. And this kind of circles back to the beginning of this, right? 50-50, 50-50. I said the word 50 about 1,000 times there. A 50-50 hiring process gives you spin, gives you your true self, right? We tell people they're not right for us. We then use the data of people that aren't right for us to improve our processes, but we've still got people in our funnels that we know they're not right, for us at least anyways. It doesn't matter how reactive or proactive, but we're still always going to have this group of people that we just can't do anything with, right? We cannot help them. We cannot hire them, and we cannot help them in our company. So recommend them to people. right? Especially people that you know for a fact you cannot hire for whatever reason, then recommend them, not just to a recruitment company. And thank you to all my companies that I work with that do this, because a lot of them do it. You know, they'll reject somebody on a final interview, they close the position, and then they'll say, look, Eden, please get in touch with that individual. They're brilliant because of X, Y, and Z. We just went for the other person for X, Y, and Z. Fine, right? Brilliant. Think about, I know a kind of a scope of the market. You know a scope of the market. You've also got friends probably in hiring positions. Talent acquisition teams talk to talent acquisition teams. Hiring managers talk to hiring managers. So bring in what I call a cooperative. So a group of companies that share the same skill set. Now, there are a few numbers that I've been trying to do this with, mainly with the large companies. I do understand a hesitation, so let me kind of explain it and break it down. Now, a cooperative doesn't work with a big group of people, right? It gets a little bit too complicated. So I found a sweet spot is 3 to 4 companies. And what you do is you approach everyone the same way. When we're hiring, if I reject somebody that I think is right for your company based on skills alone, I'll introduce them to you. But we want the same in return. Now, of course, you're not going to start hiring for another company. It's skills alone. And you create a templated email if you want with, maybe look at these companies or connect with this individual and you share obviously your LinkedIn's or whatnot. But it creates this cooperative where I'm not hiring for a full stack engineer today, or I've just hired my full stack engineer, shall we say. But I know Volt, for example, are hiring the same stack as I. And I know they've still got a job going because I'm coming up against them in competition. My job's closed. I don't need a full stack engineer anymore. I'll recommend them to insert person's name here. So the idea behind the cooperative is that it's we're helping the market more, right? A lot of talent acquisition teams want to help people. It's why we do our job. We enjoy the process of helping. But for some reason, whatever reason, we only like helping them when it benefits us and our company. It kind of goes against the point of helping people, right? So if we truly want to help people, go and help create a cooperative. Small group of people, you share resumes with each other, you help the market. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but Slack is a really good way. If you have teams, you can create Teams chats. But really, the biggest things that we're trying to get out of this is brand awareness. You become a much stronger brand, especially on the candidate experience side, by helping candidates more. That then increases referrals. That then increases networking opportunities into different markets potentially. And then you start creating this flywheel effect. People know your brand. They start to recommend it more. You start to hire better people from that. Then you bring in the cooperative again. You start the whole process. You've done your hiring. Here's some more people. They've done their hiring. Oh, here's some people. And then you create this group of talent pool development specialists where you shouldn't need to do much hiring outside of advertisement, your talent pools, and then the occasional support needed from the external partners. Like I said, it's a different perception. Nobody that I know has cracked the cooperative yet. But once it works, I think it can really be a game changer for teams. But I also appreciate it. It's a difficult pill to kind of swallow or to at least push past your manager and say, hey, by the way, we're going to go and speak to one of our main competitors and offer them candidates. But as long as it's done in the right way, I don't see any issues why it wouldn't work. But that's it. That's the wrap up on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed this. It's a very different podcast from normal because I think I wanted to at least get my perception over some things across to you from what I've seen over the last decade. And I think the biggest factor is that the talent acquisition community is phenomenal. But I think we're just lacking some basics in sales. And that's not because we're not aware of what sales processes are. I think we've just become too busy, too reactive. But if we become proactive and we give ourselves some more time and a little bit more slack as well in terms of it doesn't all have to be done yesterday. And we create the right processes behind the scenes to share candidates, to do talent pool development. I genuinely believe this industry that we're in now, the group of people that I know in the areas that I'm in, we have the ability to make some serious impact. And I'm excited personally, right? So for the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think the cycle is just going to get better. I'm so excited to see what comes out of this because I think the last 2, 3 years have been hard They've been hard on talent acquisition teams, from extreme pressures to hire to extreme pressures from not being able to hire and being let go. And we've been torn. So I'm excited to see what the next years come, because I think there's a lot of maturity that's happened in this market, and that's going to bring only better things for candidates. So look, I appreciate for you listening to me ramble. Like I said, it's a completely different perception of I didn't know. I had some notes on this one, so I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to go. So please drop a comment. Let me know if you like this style of things, if you'd like to hear more of it. And if not, hold my hands up and say it didn't work, but you tell me. Until then, though, thank you so much for listening as always. And my LinkedIn will be in the notes, so you can always connect. But thank you so much for sharing the last half hour with me. Have a good one.